All right, so number 10 is another absolute value problem. So same concept, distance is never negative. So we're going to have this idea that numbers can be coming from two different directions, one from the positive, one from the negative, but that distance is always going to be positive. This one looks a little different from number 9 for two reasons. One, there's no story. It's just a straight up, hey, let's just solve this problem. The other thing too is you notice that there's some extra numbers kind of floating around there. There's a 3 that's in front. You got this. So before we pull the two things apart, right, so like we did here, is that we pulled the two equations, one that stays the same, one that you switch. So before we pull that apart, notice there's no number that's in front of the absolute value, there's no number that's behind it. Well, if you look at this one, there is a number in front and there's a number behind. So we have to isolate the absolute value first. So we're going to isolate the absolute value first. What that means is just get rid of all the random numbers that are floating around there. So the opposite of a -3 would be a +3. And we're going to bring down that 3 and get rid of him in a second. And then have a 3 that's in front there. So that says anytime you see two things next to each other, that means multiplication. So that means that it would be 3 times the absolute value of 2x minus 1. So the opposite of multiplying is to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 3. And so what we end up with is the absolute value of 2x minus 1 greater than or equal to 5. So now that I have the absolute value isolated, nothing in front, nothing behind, now I can pull the two things apart. So as we said, the first one is, this is the one that, what if it's coming from the positive direction? So this is where you just keep it the same. 2x minus 1 greater than or equal to 5. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Divide by 2, and we get x is greater than or equal to 3. Now, on the other one, we said to switch. Okay, well, so let's switch it. So this is our negative, where we're going to switch. So I get 2x minus 1, and instead of a positive 5, I'm going to make that a negative 5. But here's the thing, is that since we're dealing with an inequality, that greater than or equal to is going to turn into a less than or equal to because we're making that negative. So we actually have to switch both the sign and the symbol. Now we're still going to add 1 to each side like what we did over there on the left. Divide by 2, that part will be the same. So we get x is less than or equal to negative 2. So the last part of this, so here's my answer, x less than negative 2, x greater than 3. The only other thing I want to do is I just want to graph this on a number line. So negative 2, so let's go to negative 2. This says all the numbers that are less than negative 2. So that means all the numbers that are smaller than negative 2. So which way do the numbers get smaller? Well, they get smaller when you go to the left. And it is going to be a closed circle because we're including that little line underneath there says we're including negative 2 in our graph. If we look at x greater than or equal to 3, we're saying all the numbers that are bigger than 3. So which way do the numbers get bigger than 3? Well, they get bigger than 3 when you go to the right. So and I'm including 3 into that. So I would have a graph where they're shaded in the opposite direction. So kind of two parts to the answer here. One, you're solving it, and then the second part is to graph that on a number line. All right, so just so you can check your work for number 10, let me give you the answer for number 10 here. So for this one, you should get an answer of x less than or equal to negative 2 and x greater than or equal to 3. All right, so that completes the review. Make sure you have all of these, the right side done for every one of these problems. Make sure you understand each problem on here because there's a question like each one of these on the test, so we want to make sure you do well. So go ahead and stop here, finish number 10, and then you're ready to retake the test.